welcome back to day 17 of online learning. We're going to be doing our third review day for our unit test that is on Thursday. So this is our last review day, and what we're going to be going over today is using the number line, and we're going to be using this number line to not only plot our fractions, but to also compare our fractions on a number line. So what I have here is a number line from 0 to 2. And I want us to remember that when we're talking about fractions, we're talking about one whole. So our one whole is going to be 0 to 1, and then another whole is going to be 1 to 2. So we technically have two wholes on this number line. If we were to make it in a fraction bar, we would have to have two fraction bars. We have two wholes. So it says complete the number line with 1/3, 3/3, 4/3, and 6/3. So what I noticed is that all of my denominators, my numbers on the bottom, are all 3. So that means that I'm going to separate my number line into 3 equal parts from 0 to 1, and then another 3 equal parts from 1 to 2, because each whole needs to be separated into the same number of parts that my denominator tells me to separate it. I also notice that 4/3 and 6/3 has two numerators that are bigger than my denominators. So when there's a numerator that's bigger than my denominator, we talked about this yesterday, that means that it's going to be more than one whole. It means that it's going to be bigger than 0 to 1. So it's going to be further on my number line. So it says complete the number line, and I remember that all of these are 3 parts. So I'm going to first separate my number line into 3 equal parts, 1, 2, 3, from 0 to 1, and then another 3 equal parts, 1, 2, 3, from 1 to 2, because it's going to be broken up the same amount because my denominator is the same throughout. So it says that I need to put 1/3 on the number line. So I see 1 full part here. So this is 1/3. Then it tells me I need to do 3/3. So I'm going to do, this is 1/3, 2/3 where this line is, and then 3/3 is where this 1 is. Because remember, when my numerator is the same as my denominator, like in 3/3, that's equal to 1. So now I see that I have 3/3, I have another third, so this would be 4/3. Then I have 5/3 here, and then 2 would be 6/3. So I have 1/3, 3/3, 4/3, and 6/3. What I'd like you to do now is by yourself on a scrap piece of paper, complete the number line with 1/4, 3/4, 4/4, 6/4, and 7/4. I want you to pause me and draw a number line from 0 to 2 and do the same thing that we did before with our new fractions. Pause me now. So what I would do first is I would notice that all of my denominators are the same. So that means that from 0 to 1, it's going to be separated the same. 1 to 2 is going to be separated the same. All of my fractions have the same parts of my whole. So I'm going to first break it up into 4 parts. So I'm going to put a line down the middle, and then put 2 in each to have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. Notice how I didn't draw 4 lines. I only drew 3 lines, which make 1, 2, 3, 4 parts, which is how many my denominator tells me to make. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And only draw 3 lines and make 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So I know that 1/4 would be the first line. And then it tells me to do 3/4, so 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. And then it tells me to do 4/4, which I would put right here, because remember, when my numerator and denominator are the same, that equals 1. So right away I can graph that without even making any parts. I know that 4/4 will be where my 1 is. And then it tells me to do 6/4 and 7/4. So 5/4, this would be where 6/4 is. And then 7/4. Notice how I still have spaces between some of my fractions, which is okay because this is 2/4, but I wasn't told to graph 2/4. And this is 5/4, but I wasn't told to put 5/4 here. So now it says to mark and label on my number line 1/3, 2/3, 1/4, and 2/4. What I notice here is now that there's different denominators. So that means that my number line is going to be broken up into different parts. To make it a little bit easier for myself, I'm going to make 2 number lines. And I'm going to make them stacked right on top of each other. Just like my fraction bars, they're right on top of each other, and my whole, or my 0 to 1 space, is the exact same amount. My whole is the same, and they're stacked right on top of each other, so it's easy for me to compare. So my first number line is where I'm going to do 1/3 and 2/3, and I'm doing that because I see that they have the same denominator, so I'm going to separate it into 3 parts by drawing 2 lines to make 1, 2, 3 parts, and I know that this is 1/3, and this is 2/3. So I have 1/3 and 2/3. On this new number line, now I'm going to break up it into 4 equal parts because that's what my fractions denominators are telling me to do. So I'm drawing a line right down the middle and then putting 2 in each because 2 times 2 is 4. And making sure that they're all equal parts. So I'm going to have 1/4 and 2/4. And I also notice that 2/4 is equal to 1/2. Using this number line, pause me and think about how I can compare 2/4 and 1/3, 2/4 and 1/3 using this number line. So how can I use my greater than, less than, or equal to sign to compare 2/4 and 1/3 using this number line? So just like my fraction bar, what I can do is I know that since my wholes are the same, my 0 to 1 has the same distance, I'm going to draw a line straight down where 1/3 is. And I'm comparing 1/3 and 2/4. So pause me and think about what number is further or greater on my number line. I see that 2/4 is bigger on my number line. So that means that it's a greater part of my whole. So that means that 2/4 is greater than 1/3. So now I have this problem. It says that Jackson drank 3/4 of a cup of soda. Latrell drank 2/6 of a cup of soda. Using a number line, who drank more? So I see that Jackson, I'm going to take a note down here. Jackson drank 3/4. Latrell drank 2/6. And now we're trying to figure out who drank more. Making two number lines by yourself, I want you to put 3/4 on one number line and 2/6 on a different number line. Remember our rules that they need to be the same size and stacked right on top of each other, just like we would do with a fraction bar. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this bar for Jackson, or J, and then this number line, L, for Latrell. So Jackson drank 3/4 of a cup of soda. So that means that I'm going to separate my number line into 4 parts. 4 equal parts. And he drank 3/4, so I'm going to do 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. Then I saw Latrell drank 2/6 of a cup of soda. So my denominator is 6, so I'm going to break it up into 6 equal parts by making 3 equal parts, and then putting 2 in each part. Have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal parts. And it said Latrell drank 2/6, so 1/6, 2/6. So I put my 2 fractions on the number line. Now I need to compare. So I'm going to put a line straight down from where Jackson is, and it's asking me who drank more. Who drank more of my 1 cup of soda? Pause me and think about it. So I see that Jackson drank more. And the reason I was able to figure that out is that he has more on my number line. This is where Latrell is. This is where Jackson is. He has more of my whole filled up, so he had more soda. So my question here is to use the number line below. Which fraction is equivalent to 1/3? So I'm looking for the fraction that is equivalent to 1/3. And remember, we talked about equivalent fractions means that fractions that have different numerators and denominators that are the same amount of my whole. So pause me and think about how I can compare and find a fraction that's equivalent to 1/3. I know that I can use number lines to compare my fractions, so I will make a number line to show my options for A, B, C, and D, which is 1/4, 2/4, 3/6, and 2/6. And I noticed that 1/4 and 2/4 have the same denominator. And I noticed that 3/6 and 2/6 have the same denominator. And because they have the same denominator, that means that I can just use the same number line since they're going to be separated the same amount of my whole. Because they're going to be both, so my first number line will be broken up into 4 parts, and it's easy for me to see 1/4 and 2/4 on each. So remember our rules, just like a fraction bar, they need to be, my number line needs to be the same size. So 0 to 1 is the same amount, and they need to be stacked on top of each other. So I'm going to do the same thing and make a different number line for when I'll separate it into 6. And now I'm going to separate it into 4 equal parts. Put a line down the middle and graph 1/4, 2/4. And I want to make a different number line for my fractions that are broken up into 6 equal parts, because if I'm putting a bunch of different lines on it, it's going to get confusing. So for 3/6 and 2/6, I'm going to break it up into thirds and make sure that my thirds are going to be the same for here, because I'm making them into the same equal parts, and then put 2 in each. So I have 1/6, 2/6, and then 3/6. So I have 1/4, 2/4, 3/6, and 2/6 all graphed on my number line. Pause me and think about, what am I going to do next? Next, I'm going to make a line right down where 1/3 is to see what takes up my whole the same amount that 1/3 does, which is equivalent. What is equal or the same to 1/3? And I see that when I made my line straight down, I see that 2/6 is on the same spot of my number line, even though they're two different number lines. It still is on the same spot of my number line on both, for 2/6 and 1/3. So the fraction that's equivalent to 1/3 is 2/6. So now by yourself, what I want you to do is use the number line below. Which fraction is equivalent to 1/4? So find the fraction that's equivalent to 1/4 and see if it's A, 2/6, B, 2/8, C, 3/8, or D, 1/3. So make different number lines and figure out which fraction is equivalent to 1/4. Make sure you're following your rules of the same size number lines and that they're stacked on top of each other. Pause me and do that now. So I see that I have 2/6, 2/8, 3/8, and 1/3. So I see that 2/8 and 3/8 have the same denominator, so I can use one number line for those two. So I need to make 1, 2, 3 new number lines to show 2/6 and then 2/8 and 3/8 and then 1/3. And they need to all be the same size, stacked on top of each other, where my whole is the same amount. So for 2/6, I'm going to separate it into 3 equal parts and then put 2 in each. So 1/6, 2/6. 2/8 and 3/8, I'm going to separate it into 8 equal parts by putting a line down the middle and making 4 equal parts and putting 2 in each. So 1/8, 2/8, 3/8. Then 1/3, I'm going to separate it again into 3 equal parts. Notice how I'm making sure that my equal parts, when I'm separating into 3 equal parts, are the same equal parts that I did up here. Because my thirds, if I have 3 equal parts here, it should be the same size for 3 equal parts up here. So then I have 1/3. So next I'm going to draw a line to find the equivalent fraction for 1/4. So I'm drawing a line straight down to see what fraction completes my number line the same way. So pause me and think about what fraction is equivalent. So the fraction that's equivalent, that lands on my number line the same place, is 2/8. So that means that 2/8 and 1/4 are equivalent, are equal to each other. I'm going to pull up your have to for today. And so just like the past couple of days, you're going to be working on these 2 IXL skills with a scrap piece of paper to get a SMART score of 80% for 30 minutes. So you should be spending a lot of time on working to get that SMART score of 80%. Make sure you have a scrap piece of paper. And the 2 skills are Y.3, graph and compare fractions with like denominators on number lines, and B, Y.5, which is to graph and compare fractions on number lines. And then you're going to do page 376, which is labeled Unit 6 as 2.3. And that's assigned on Google Classroom. It's going to take you onto a different platform called Pearson. Realize I want you to watch the end of this YouTube video to see step by step what you're going to be doing to log on. You're only going to be needing to do this one time, but this is to get you prepared, because this is where we're taking the test tomorrow. This is going to be the only time that you're going to need to do this. Other than that, it should be able to get you directly on the assignment. But you're going to go to classwork. For day 8 or day 17, you're going to see your assignment. Open it up, and you're going to see this Pearson Realize tab. It says Unit 6 S2.3 homework. It's not for homework, that's what you're going to do now, and it's going to have this screen. You can either wait and it's going to have you redirected, or you can click Take Me There Now. You're going to have to pick the account. I'm doing this on Faith's account right now. So choose your account, and then it says that it wants to access your Google account. You're going to press Allow, and then quickly it's asking you to choose your preferred language. So English, choose an icon. I'm going to choose a dog. A background image, I'm going to use sunflowers. And then it says all the way at the bottom, you're scrolling, and now it says ready to get started. So quickly just go through, pick a profile, a background image, and then press Let's Go. Your assignment is right here, and you're going to directly go on it on this website. And then you're going to show your work for comparing fractions. So it says to compare each pair of fractions. Use words, number lines, or drawings to show how you know. Record your solution by using less than, greater than, or equal to. So number 1 says Lily ran 2/3 of a mile. Sarah ran 1/3 of a mile. Who ran farther? Or did they run the same distance? So over here you have a pen that you can use, and you can make your fraction bars. Make it a little bit neater than I did, so I'm going to slow down this time. And compare. And you're able to use an eraser, and I'm going to erase this top one. And the bottom one, just because I'm showing you for an example. And you're able to do undo or redo, and then you can add text. So if I wanted to say blank, whoever Lily or Sarah ran farther, and I can drag that down to here. I'm going to delete that, and then you're going to come over here when you're all done and press turn in. So until I complete 1, 2, and 3, I'm not going to do anything until I'm all done, and then I'll press turn in.